Virginia's District 2 Congressman Riley Moore and U.S. Senator Jim Risch filed an amicus brief to the Supreme Court in defense of keeping men out of women's sports. Moore and Risch filed the brief with the U.S. Supreme Court in support of two cases, one out of West Virginia and another one out of Idaho. The brief supports both states in their defense of state laws that make sure Title IX protections continue to keep men from playing and participating in women's sports. The brief's argument is broken into four parts, one claiming that Title IX uses the word, quote, sex to mean biology and not gender identity. Moore spoke from the perspective of a father in an interview with WTAP about his decision.
I'm a father of two daughters, and this is hugely important to me. I don't want males competing with my daughters in sports, particularly as they start to get older. I don't think that's fair to them. The point of Title IX was to create and protect women's sports, not for it to be taken over by males.
You can find more from Congressman Moore's interview at WTAP.com.